Good evening, everyone, and welcome to welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. A great start, reminiscent of the start that we witnessed on Saturday afternoon. And Mac, I'd just like to segue into these things, mate. How you going?
As I said to you before, had a hell of a day, mate. It's been Mrs. Macca's birthday, and we've had people here from arsehole to breakfast time, and it's been hard getting something prepared for the night. I've done my best, but I think anger will take over more than anything.
Yes, well, there's plenty of anger, plenty of disbelief, actually, to be honest with you. That was my overriding emotion, particularly during the first half, was just utter disbelief at how inept we could possibly be. I don't know what else to say about it, really.
Well, I got a bit more than that. You were bloody kind. They were pathetic. They were incompetent. They were insipid. They did not come out to play. They were totally outworked by another team. Hawthorn are where we were, or below, or start of the season below. But they're prepared to work their ass off, and our guys weren't prepared to. And the players embarrassed themselves. They embarrassed the club. The coach is absolutely dead set useless. He will never take us anywhere, this bloke. And they've signed him up for another 2 years. He will never ever take us to the promised land, mate. Never, ever. And our list management team has got a lot to answer for with some of the tripe that we've got in the past years. So overall, the club is stuffed. It's stuffed at the moment. Absolutely stuffed.
Well, it's pretty strong, but not unreasonable, mate. Not unreasonable at all. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things that we observed on Saturday, which I think were probably just the chickens coming home to roost, to be honest with you. It's just let's get into the cast, and then we can talk about it as we roll in. There's a good smattering of people in the Discord server. Of course, we are live and interactive, and if you want to get around and have your say, then please get into the Discord live studio audience and put your hand up and we'll get you on. You can have your say. Welcome to everyone who's on YouTube and also on Twitter and also on Facebook. All those platforms very healthy, which is good to see. And Mac, why don't we just ease into things? We'll just ease into things by doing the weekend results first of all, shall we?
Well, that'll calm me down a little, I suppose.
We'll just calm down and we'll just take stock and then we'll get going. Alrighty.
I'll recharge for another blast afterward.
Well, the round started off pretty good with the Blues touching up Port to the tune of 36 points at the Adelaide Oval. Port 10-11-71 to Carlton 16-11-107. And Port being labelled pretend top four team by many.
I think the word isn't it fake Final Four?
Something like that.
Yeah, but in fairness to Port, the first three quarters were pretty tight struggle. It wasn't a very classy game. It was a battle, physical battle, and Geelong, they did the right thing in they tagged Butters, because Butters can be an absolute match winner on his own. On the other hand, Walsh was absolutely starring for the Blues, but he was sort of only their midfielder that was starring as well. But the difference really boiled down to, in the end, Cripps joined in the last quarter, and he exploded, and Walsh continued. And of course, Carlton have got two damn good forwards. And if you go down the other end and you have a look at the key forwards of Port Adelaide, Dixon, one handball for the game, one handball,
Yeah, I
and
know.
the other bloke, Marshall, I reckon he would faint if anything. If he said, "I'm going to hit you" or something like that, I reckon he'd faint. He is so weak, absolutely weak. Georgiades did very well for them, but I'll tell you what, they had nothing up forward whatsoever, really. And
they do have problems up forward.
Yeah, and they Carl ran over him with, as I said, Cripps just absolutely exploded in the last quarter, and
so just to just to give you set the expectations, Macca, I got through this segment last week in about 3 minutes.
Well, I probably just used it all up then.
The next match we had another surprise. The Dogs with it continue their Jekyll and Hyde performances. 15-10-100 over Collingwood, 12-10-82. 18-point winners, the Dogs.
Yeah, well, both sides went in with some key players missing with injury, and the Dogs suffered 3 more injuries during the game with only 2 on the bench, but that made no difference. Bontempelli played probably one of the best individual games I've seen for many a long year, and he is an absolute champion. And his team responded to that. Young Darcy, up forward, he's going to be a star. He's also going to get a holiday, I think, for smashing somebody in the back but that's the way it goes. But for that particular game, I'll just say Bontempelli, he got the boys going, and they knocked them over.
Yeah, and they just continue to hang around, don't they?
They do. I mean, Dacus was outstanding, but he didn't have many mates to help him. Perhaps, so maybe Chris. That was about it for Collingwood.
Yeah. The next game we had St Kilda 12-10-82. Struggled to beat West Coast, who were so insipid last week, but 14 points in the end, 10-8-68 West Coast.
Well, that's a good lead in, because that's exactly what I was going to say, so I agree with that part. Harley Reid was an interesting character. He had a dominating second quarter for a first-year player, 13 disposals, but he also had a situation where he grabbed somebody in a tackle and slammed their head into the ground, so I don't think he's going to be playing next week. But
no, he won't be back.
Has that been... has that gone through? He's been suspended?
I think so. Yeah, definitely 2 weeks. And there goes his rising star as well.
And a lot of money. There's all the various things that go with it. So I think they estimate it's going to cost him about $40,000. So hope you enjoyed the slam, Harley.
Well, you don't mind players playing with confidence, and he certainly comes in and plays with confidence. But again, another one of these lads that maybe just needs to have a think about it, because he's got ahead of himself a little bit, I reckon, there, Harley.
Now, I just want to make one comment here, and this is not really about the game itself, but Harley Reid is a first-year player, and he's got a big aura around him and a big name already. An umpire gave a decision against him for a late bump. And he argued, and he was screaming at the umpire and abusing and gesticulating and waving his hands. Whatever happened to that particular rule?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We've seen dissent for a bloke saying, "Oh, bugger," or something like that. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
This guy carried on for about 30 seconds and nothing happened.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I do think he's got a bit ahead of himself, to be honest with you, Mac. Like I said, he's obviously an awesome talent. He's a man-child, so he's got a body built for AFL. He's ready to go. He's incredibly skillful. Got so much going for him, but you got to learn to walk before you can run, right?
Absolutely.
Then we had the Cats struggling, but eventually getting over Richmond by 30 points. The Cats 15-9-99, defeating Richmond 10-9-69 by 30.
Yeah, disappointing that they got up. I would have loved to have seen them done. I was getting a bit excited halfway through the second quarter when Richmond were leading, but then unfortunately Geelong got started and Richmond couldn't keep it going, and in the end they sort of ran over them in the end to win by 5 goals, and that's the story of the tape.
It is the story of the tape, Macca. Thank you for keeping that nice and short. And and then, how's this for a bit of a shock? The Dockers 92-point winners over Melbourne. The Dockers 22-9, 141. Melbourne 7-7-49. I didn't see the game, but what the heck?
I actually did watch the go through visitors' heads, but Melbourne were pathetic, mate. There's a problem at that particular club, but I don't think Goodwin's are going to survive this in the long run if they're going to come up with performances like this. I mean, they've got a side that have got big names in it, and they were pathetic. Freo just dominated the game. Freo's defence was dominated, their midfield dominated, their forwards dominated. They just absolutely slaughtered them. And, I think the Melbourne Football Club, they'd be a bit like Adelaide at the moment, wondering where they're at and who's what and who's... And I think Goody could be in trouble.
Well, they're going to have to turn it around. They seem to be just going at the moment, but it is early days, and we've seen over the last few years that as long as you can keep yourself in touch, it's form over the last month before the finals that really counts. So they've got a bit of a leeway at the moment.
Yep, I guess so, but that was bad. They were really bad, mate. They stunk.
And the Suns doing what they had to do. This was one of these games that they had to win, Macca, to be a legitimate threat, and they did. Essendon were good early, but the Suns 14-7-91, 11-point winners over the Bombers 11-14-80.
They're actually making that ground a fortress for Feen. They've played 7 games and they've won every one of them. So that's what you like to do, make your home ground sure win, and they're doing that at the moment. But, Essendon, I think they were second on the ladder before this particular game. So it's not like they beat Joe Nobody, but Gold Coast was very, very good, and their midfield was quite outstanding, actually. So, dominated. Essendon they started well, but when they had a period of being on top in that first quarter, they were very inaccurate, and that did cost them. And then Gold Coast got into the game, and once they got their game going, and they took over the game, and that was it. Good night, Irene. And, very good win.
Yep, and leading us to the ladder. And, of course, it's a split round over the next few weeks, which just makes it bloody difficult again, but never mind, whatever. The Swans remain on top with 40 points. Essendon remain second on 34. Geelong, Port and Carlton on 32. Fremantle jumping up to 6 with 30 points. My goodness me. The Giants, who are yet to play, still 28 points, with the Suns now sneaking into the 8 for the time being. And then we have Collingwood out of the 8, along with Melbourne on 28 points. Western Bulldogs 24 points. Hawthorn jumping up to 12th on 20 points. Brisbane in a little bit of trouble on 18. The Crows on far more trouble on 18. St Kilda on 16. West Coast on 12. Richmond on 4. And North yet to score. And I want to just bring your attention to something on that ladder, Macca. And it was even worse before the game. Hawthorn have 86.7% and we have 108.6. I think before the game they had like 82 and we had about 112.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell, as we lead into our game, how the hell did we let that team kick 16 goals? With given their percentage over the year, they're obviously not a high-scoring side. How did we let them kick 16 goals? Because
our work rate was absolutely pathetic. Absolutely woeful. I've never seen a team so insipid. They were insipid, mate. There was no physicality from us at all. We had juniors. They had juniors like Mackenzie and no-name brands that running around and just running like unregistered dogs. And our guys weren't working hard enough to stop it. They just did not. They weren't prepared to put in.
So it was Hawthorn 16-11-107 to Adelaide 12-8-80, 27 points. I think that probably flattered us. I think we were 2 goals 3 at about the 10-minute mark of the third quarter, and then we started to kick a few, and it kind of just moseyed on to the end. We were never a threat. We never looked like it. We never even troubled Hawthorn in any respect. And once we lost Tex, it was even worse because our avenues to goal dried up, and it wasn't until we started running the ball by hand that we actually looked like it. But like you said, Macca, it was insipid. It was lazy. It was pedestrian. The game plan that they rolled out in preparation against West Coast the previous week, as I suspected, Macca, and as I commented last week, did not hold up under pressure. The chippy chip game did not hold up under pressure. And Hawthorn, I think, kicked 7 goals from forward half turnovers. We just couldn't transition the ball.
A very good summary there, Feen, because that's exactly what did happen. And you did make the comment about the game plan, and because I did listen to the tape, and I got to say, this coach can't coach, mate. It's just as simple as that. He cannot coach. He's just got no idea. He's got no idea whatsoever.
Well, again, let's start at selection, Mac, because again we had Sam Berry as sub. We went in unchanged, and once again we see this midfield get trotted out that includes Matty Crouch and Rory Laird in the same rotation for large chunks of the game, and our midfield, aside from hard working from Saligo and a little bit on the outside from Jordan Dawson, was insipid. Our ability to defend their midfielders was absolutely non-existent, and it was 0. Matthew Crouch and Rory Laird that were not accountable for their players.
Well, I can't disagree with you at all. I mean, that's exactly what did happen. Laird in particular, is as loose as buggery at that centre. Crouch he gets shown up more in the field play, but I'm talking about centre bounces. Actually, we haven't bothered to recruit A-grade midfielders when did we last recruit an A-grade midfielder? We just haven't. When we've actually traded with other teams, I mean, we still haven't got an A-grade midfielder. I'm talking about a quality midfielder. We have to do with workhorses rather than stars in the midfield. We've got workhorses, and workhorses can't keep up with racehorses. And unfortunately, that's what we've got, just workhorses.
Macca, we're going to have this debate again because you don't know what we've recruited or drafted, at least, because they don't get played there.
And it's fair, that's fair comment. We're not going to argue about that because I'm on your side now with that. You can't. Well, you don't know until you've played them. And when you're travelling poorly in a position, surely you'd try other people who are performing in the twos.
Well, the thing that astonished me, we've got Joshua Shelley in the side, we've got Harry Scheinberg in the side, we've got Sam Berry in the side, and what do? They decide to throw Max Michaelani in the middle.
That was insanity.
I mean, what's going on? I mean, I know Max is a good young player, and I know that he was probably in there in a defensive capacity, but talk about throwing a kid to the wolves. And rightly so, he looked bloody all at sea because he clearly wouldn't have trained with the bloody mids much at all during the season. What an absolute desperate move by a desperate coach, bereft of any ideas whatsoever.
Well, this is what I think the P-brain thought. Will Day was a half-back flanker that's gone into the midfield. I'll move one of mine into the midfield to match him. I think that's about what the feeble thinking that went into that. I don't know why else you would have done it.
Mate, feeble thinking is correct because there was absolutely no rhyme or reason. We had blokes in like Rash. I think hardly had a CBA all game, sitting there on a half forward flank, away from the ball. Whenever the ball comes with it, whenever the ball comes into that area, into his area, he feels as if he's got to make something of it because he's so starved of opportunities, you know. Yeah. And you know, I think the jury's still out on Josh in many respects, but I'm prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt until he actually gets a bloody opportunity in the position that we've been freaking crying out for some flair and for some run. And you know, he's shown that he can get a clearance out of the centre whenever he goes. Like, his percentage of attendances to clearances is probably better than anyone else in our team, to be perfectly honest. He just doesn't get a run. Does not get a run.
And the kid played nearly all his junior football as a non-baller. I mean, so it makes it even more stupid to stick him out always on a half-forward flank.
I just don't understand how they're playing him. I don't get it. You know, at times we had Crouch and Laird in the same rotation, and we were so slow out of that midfield, so slow and so pedestrian. And, you know, we'll get to individual player stats in a minute, but when you've got Matt Crouch and Rory Laird both playing mids at the same time, let alone one of them, your transition is so slow because whenever Matt Crouch or Rory Laird gets the ball, Matt Crouch doesn't want to kick it, and Rory Laird only wants to kick it sideways or backwards.
Well, sad but true. Sad but true, mate.
But it does. Every time the ball gets into their hands during general play, the game slows down.
Well, there's no argument for me. I thought that... the midfield's been a problem for a long time, last year, this year, but this coach is not, you know, you can have Billy Dowling busting his guts down in the twos and playing well, and he's a quick player, but no, he's not going to get a run.
Well, he has to get a run this week. It just has to get a run this week. That I think Matthew Nicks showed a little bit of his hand when he threw Max in, because he actually threw Rory Laird back. And to me, that's the first sign that I've seen that maybe he's finally realised that he can't run those two blokes in the middle. Rory Laird's, despite picking up touches, Rory Laird hasn't been in great form as a midfielder. We haven't been getting great value out of him as a midfielder for quite some time. You know, he's lost a yard. His disposal's never been good. He's never been an aggressive disposer of the ball, and he is such a liability defensively now. It's ridiculous. And he actually got a couple of decent touches in the last quarter off that half-back line, and to me it's a no-brainer. He goes back there now, and the person whose place he takes, Macca, is Brodie Smith.
Look, you and I are in 100% agreement on that one particular fact. We've always agreed on that. We're not Smith fans. And I just can't believe it that he's allowed. They got a point, and Smith runs down there to get a kick out, and he's the worst user of the ball. And where did he go? Straight to the right-hand side to the pack, because that's what he always does. Absolutely.
And you know, I reckon he was instrumental in Hawthorn's first 3 goals, Brodie. I actually thought that the jumper clash, and even we got even that wrong. We wore red, predominantly red with a large amount of yellow against Hawthorn. Why don't they just wear bloody blue? So Brodie obviously got confused and thought he was on the other side, because he was involved in their first 3 goals. But look, the other stupid thing was, and this is where Matthew Nicks hangs kids out to dry, right? So we've got a bloke who is a bona fide wingman, right, who's been playing well on a wing, and we are getting towed up down back. So what happens is he plays Luke Nankervis as a small defender. Luke Nankervis is not a small defender. He got absolutely taken to the cleaners by Hawthorn's small forwards because he's completely out of position. He needed to be up in the wing. And yet we end up playing Chase Jones up in the wing, who does 2/5 of bugger all, who is our small defender.
absolutely. I agree with you, Fee. No, you're well put. 100% right.
Like, what is going on? Why is this so difficult for people who have paid a lot of money to see? Why are they playing Luke Nankervis last line of defence when he is clearly a creative wingman? I think more than anything else, that one really pissed me off because he's been playing so well up the ground. He's so creative. He plays tall. He's got time. He's great in transition because he generally makes good decisions. And we play him as a small defender on the last line of defence. What are they watching?
Well, as I say, this coach has got no idea, and they've signed this. They've signed this gentleman up for another 2 years. I cannot. It wasn't what I was going to say. I just can't stand the thought of another 2 years of that. Pay him out and get a coach. For God's sake, get us a coach that can actually coach a team, that can make selections, put players in the right place. Players that have had their day, move them out. Put in players that are starting to grow and let them grow in the A's and let them become proper A-grade footballers. There's this coach. He does everything the opposite of what he should be doing.
This coach has banked his future on senior players that were never good enough to start off with Macca, and that are 7 years on from the last time they did anything in a season, which was 2017. We are 7 years on from that disaster, when a lot of these blokes let the club down by the way they played. Blokes like Laird and Smith, etc. Right? They were never going to get any better. They're all now past it. Why is he banking his coaching future on these blokes that are not... They're not a Luke Hodge or a player like that you can put a team around and have that experience come through. They're just no good anymore. And then he plays Tex, who's been bloody injured all year, and finally poor old Tex has succumbed to that back injury. Why did we, if Tex has been carrying something, why did we have to play him last week?
Well, he shouldn't have played last week. That's as simple as that. And I don't think Dawson should have played this week.
Clearly hampered by a foot injury.
Well, it was announced before the game that he wasn't playing it. I don't know if you heard that, because somebody made a mistake on it, but it was announced he wasn't going to play, and then later on another announcement saying, correction, he is playing.
Yeah, I heard that he was doubtful. I don't get it, and I'd be shocked if he's not losing these younger players who continue to get hung out to dry. Where did Harry Schomburg play? I don't even know what position Harry Schomburg played.
I don't either. That's the sad part of it.
Well, I don't think Harry knew either.
No, I think he was stuck at a half-forward flank most of the game, I think.
By all reports, Harry has some skills as a midfielder, but you wouldn't bloody know.
Does he? What was his CBAs, if any? I think I saw him in there once.
Yeah, he was in there a little bit in the second half, but he wasn't sided much apart from that. We've got to give up on Lachlan Murphy. We've got to give up on Chase Jones. We've got to give up on Brodie Smith. We've got to give up on Lockie Scholl. These blokes are not going to take us where we need to go. We've got to give up on Rory Laird. We've got to give up on Matt Crouch. We've got to give up on Riley O'Brien. These blokes aren't going to take us anywhere, Mac. They have been given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and they've failed. Right? Where we're at now, we have not progressed in the 4 years that Matthew Nicks has been coaching. We have not progressed.
No, we haven't. And I agree with everything you said there. I would partially with Jones say that at least I thought he did make some efforts where other players didn't make some efforts. I'm not saying he's a star, but I thought at least the guy tried. That's the one thing I will give him. But every other player you mentioned there, not worth two bob.
No. Those in the chat saying Scholl wasn't the worst. He wasn't the worst, but he's not going to perform in tough pressure games. We know that. Everyone knows that. In tough pressure games, Lachie Scholl's not gonna perform. You know, we know that under pressure, Ben Keys is gonna tank. Right? Ultimately he's a selfish player up forward. His disposal is bloody shocking, and we know that under pressure he's going to tank. He's got fantastic effort. You'd never question his heart or anything like that. You have him in a squad for that reason, just the same as you have Chase Jones in a squad for that reason. But they are not best 22 players, Macca, in my opinion.
It's I suppose there's two answers to this, Feen, in the sense whether you're talking about with what we've got at the moment or with what we should have at the moment. At the moment, some of those players that you mentioned are going to get a game because there isn't anybody else to take their place, because there's not only one player or two players or three players that should be out of the side. There's probably 6 to 8 players that probably shouldn't be bloody playing in the side. So if you and you can't quite manage all them at once. So there's probably a couple that are going to, and Scholl might be one on his performance that would stay, and Jones might be one who would stay. But gee, they could bristle all the others and make 3 or 4 changes minimum of the names that you mentioned.
Yeah, look, and clearly you can't turn over that much of the squad straight away. But the fact that we continue to pick blokes like Murphy, we continue to pick blokes like McHenry, all the rest of it, and we've got a bloke in Will Dowling that's sitting in the twos, been sitting there for a couple of years now, playing excellent footy, who can't even get a look in, right? And who the coach, every time Will Dowling's name is raised to the coach brings him down a peg. Right, doesn't talk him up, nothing. He's not even on the coach's radar at the moment.
And he says he's getting close.
Yeah, he was close 6 weeks ago.
Correct.
It's almost patronising the way that Matthew Nicks talks about Will Dowling. Dan Curtin got a quarter and a half or however lot. He got bloody pulled off the ground. He got played out of position. Dan Curtin was crucified, Feen. He was put onto the fastest, nippiest player in the Brisbane side in a forward pocket, and he's stuck in a back pocket. He's 197 centimetres on a guy 183 who's as mobile as buggery. I mean, that was clearly Jones should have come down there, and Curtin should have gone up into Jones's spot, and that would have given Curtin a fair go and an opportunity to at least look like a footballer. What he did is he embarrassed the kid by putting him into an impossible position that could never succeed. And that's how bad a coach. And that's how bad a coach he is. That's how bad he is. That's correct, Macca.
And our list management team went out of their way to do double trades all over the place to get this kid, and this coach. Oh, and then he did score. He's messed. He has the old F word was just about to fly. He has just messed up with this kid's mind very badly indeed. He's made this kid feel like he's no bloody good. He made him embarrass the kid. He left him on there. The kid's made to look like he's got no bloody ability because he's totally mismatched. He's mismatched.
Exactly.
And it's not his fault. He didn't put himself there. That bald-headed twit in the grandstand, he put him there.
I thought you were talking about me for a minute.
No, mate. I'm talking about a twit. I'm talking about the thing that they call our coach, and he's got to go. And I tell you what, I just hope the club is listening to this. I just hope you're listening to this, because I'm unloading on you. But I'm unloading. But there are tens of thousands of me unloading on you, because they can't stand this shit that's being served up. They've got it. You extended this. man, for another 2 years. At the beginning of the season, you could have waited. You should have waited to see what was going to happen. Port waited with that, and then they signed Kenny. We could have done the same thing. Nobody was going to rush in and get him. Nobody would have wanted him. You could have waited. But now you've signed him up for 2 more years. Pay him out, whatever you got to pay him out, and get a coach.
Awesome, Macca. Just adjust your camera a bit there. I think you might have just slipped down in your chair during that.
All right. What do I do?
Just get yourself more in the frame. There you go. That's better. Yeah.
Sorry, I got
Macca,
a bit carried away there.
No. You're 100% right, mate. And I love the passion. And we're just done with this. And all right, we're reacting to a poor performance, etc., etc. But he's by and large had the same squad now since he arrived. Okay, we've added to it with some real quality, and of course Isaac was out last week, but that one player shouldn't make a difference. Okay, he hasn't really developed the squad. We've got. I remember a couple of years ago interviewing Jake Saligo and Harry Schoenberg and all these blokes, Macca, and they were all really excited to take the club on the next journey. And here we are 2-3 years later, and they're still playing around the edges. They're still, building their game or whatever, and we're still relying on blokes that should have been either traded out by now or retired by now. We were just damn lucky that Tex had a career year last year, and all credit to Tex. We all thought he was cooked, and then he comes out and resurrects himself, and that was fantastic. But we all knew that was not going to last, and when the cliff came, it was going to come very fast, which it looks like it might be doing for poor old Tex now. Okay, yeah, but I reckon Tex's form covered up a lot of sins last year, and one of those sins, as we kept pointing out last year, when the shiny finals came into view for Nix and Co, they steered right away from player development. From round 7 last year, they steered right away from player development, and here we are still trotting out the same freaking line-out every week, relying on the same blokes every week that sputtered in the second half of last season. Last season was a mirage because it was all built around rounds 3 to 7, right? And then our win-loss was actually after the bye last year was average. I think it was 3 and 5 or something like that. It wasn't great. And that's when Matt Crouch had come back into the side, and that's when Rory Sloane was wheeling his wheelchair out there and all the rest of it. I just can't believe that this guy has shied away from his remit, which is to develop the next Adelaide Crows side. He seems to be coaching for today, Macca, or yesterday as it turns out, but he seems to be coaching for the present instead of coaching for the future. And that's the bit that has frustrated me throughout his tenure. The fact that at no stage do you get a sense that he's actually trying to build a team for the future. And you have a look at a club like Hawthorn now, who are on a similar development timeline to us, and you have a look at some of the kids that are developing through that team, and yeah, they're not perfect, but they're not relying on any seniors through the middle. There's 2 or 3 senior blokes in that side, and they're playing bit roles. Jack Gunston's playing a bit role. Luke Brewster's playing a bit role. Their midfielders all young kids. Newcomb and Day, etc., etc. They're not crutching on seniors who are past it. They're trusting, putting the trust of the club in their next generation, and look what happens.
Yeah, you can see very, very clearly what Hawthorn are doing. And they were prepared to take pain to get going. And that means that you play these young players so that they'll let you down in the first few matches because they don't have the experience, they don't have the know-how, they haven't you have to be 20, 30 games at least before you're going to be a really competent player or a chance of being a competent player. But Hawthorn did the right thing. They just kept playing those players. Now, those players that they put faith in for the future, and if I went through them, I could probably, and had their list in front of me, I could probably name half a team that are in that position. And they are coming with a rush. And when I say with a rush, that they are They are going ahead at a rate far faster than we are. In fact, we're going backwards. So while we play blokes like Smith, for example, Smith is never going to be in anybody's premiership team. In fact, he's lucky to be in anybody's team. And it's the comparison between ourselves and Hawthorn is very, very bad, and in terms of the way one team's developing itself for the future and prepared to take pain to get there, which they have done, and now they're starting to get some reward. And we went for the easy fix, which isn't a real fix because, as you said, it just wallpapers over the cracks. And now some of the wallpapers peeling off as Walker's back gives way, etc. And the other players are getting older. It's just showing that we're going to be no good. We're just going nowhere. We're going nowhere. I can't see when would you try and nominate a year that this team is going to win a flag?
Well, not the current team, no. Not the current team. And the problem is, Macca, that we lost so much time and development in the second half of last year for blokes that are 10 games short of where they should be in terms of their development cycle because they weren't played or they were played out of position, Luke Pedlar's development has been stunted. I know that Harry Schonberg got an injury, but before that he was overlooked. Sam Berry kept getting overlooked. I'm not saying that any of those young players are the answer, but what I'm saying is, Macca, that the problem is that when they come into the side, Lockie Gallant's another one, right? When they come into the side, they're played in peripheral roles, which means that every time they get the ball, they must feel like they have to do something spectacular in order to stay in the team, because they're not being played in roles where they can, as Matthew Nicks used to like to say, show their weapon, right? So, Luke Nankervis in a back pocket, he's not showing anything in the back pocket. Harry Schonberg, Josh Rochelle on a forward flank, Sam Berry half the time on a forward flank. They're not showing their weapons there. That's not where they were picked. We had the director of football come out last year and declare, under no uncertain terms, that Isaac Rankin wasn't a midfielder. And the club didn't consider Isaac a midfielder. Well, didn't he make Mark Rashudo look like a bloody dickhead?
Yes, he did.
Mark Rashudo, an all-time champion of our club, but he clearly is not a good judge of football. Clearly, he's not a good judge of football, Macca. He makes personnel decisions that are bad and built around personal bias, and he makes declarations about players that are completely off the mark. And this is the bloke that's head of our selection committee and head of our recruitment our list management committee, Mark Rashudo, right? He is head of our list management and selection panels, right?
Yeah.
So he's got to go. He's got to go. He's got to go. Matthew Nicks got to go. He's on a 34% win-loss record since he started, and if you go and have a look at who we actually beat, if you took out the West Coast and North Melbournes and the St Kildas and all the rest of it, I think he's like down to about a 22 or 23% win-loss record. And there's 4 or 5 teams that we haven't beaten in his tenure, Macca. We have not beaten certain sides in his tenure.
Well, you are preaching to the converted. I'd kick him out tomorrow if I had my way. I seriously, I would. I wouldn't even wait at the end of the year. I'd just flick him. I've got no time for him. He can't.
When is this club going to grow a spine and realise that what? I don't care whether you're a happy clapper or a die-hard negative supporter or anywhere in between. At the end of the day, what we want to see is a team that contends, that plays with heart and with spirit, with flair, and that you can actually see, win or lose, that there's a method, that there's a system, that there's a plan, and that, number one, football is this club's first priority. At the moment, I'm not seeing that football is this club's number one priority. To me, it's all about jobs for the boys. It's about a corporate identity. It's about making sure the balance sheet's right, making sure the members keep rolling up. And this club is bloody lucky that it has so many dyed-on-the-wall supporters that they can get 40,000 up to a bloody Mother's Day game, because we're about as good as St Kilda. When it comes to results, since we've been in the competition, we've won 2 flags, Macca. In all that time, this was a team that was born out of the SANFL State of Origin spirit, right? And in the time that we've been in this bloody competition, we've won 2 flags and only been in one other grand final that we tanked. That whole time. And we should be fucking embarrassed about that. We are a powerhouse football state, and yet West Coast leave us in the dust, right? And we are a parody of a football club at the moment. And I've had a bloody enough of it. And if blokes like Olsen and that can't turn the ship around, we'll chuck them out and get blokes in who can, because what I want to do is support a football club, not a bloody corporate franchise.
Well, there's nothing to argue about what you're saying. In fact, we won 2 flags in our first 8 years in the club, and that last one was 2018. 1998. So if you go, what's that? That is 26. That's 26 years ago, Fee.
I know.
26. Oh, nearly swore again.
Mark Rashuto's had 8 kids since we won our last flag.
Well, all I can say is there's a lot of things he's effing up.
Sorry. So before I continue, I'm not implying anything. I don't know how many kids Rue's got, and I know they're all with his missus. So however many kids he's got, he's had that many kids. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, I know what I'm getting at.
Sorry, Rue, if you're listening, I wasn't implying anything.
No, but having said that, 26 bloody years, and we played in one grand final in that time. 26 years. That, from a football club, is pathetic. It is absolutely. I mean, even if you just take it in turns, with the number of teams you're out of.
It's St Kilda levels of pathetic, Macca. It's St Kilda levels of pathetic. The only teams I would rather not support at the moment are Fremantle and St Kilda, and maybe North Melbourne.
Okay, they're going good.
Well, they are now, but they've not ever won anything, Well,
the way they're going, they're more likely to than us. They've got a lovely midfield, mate. I'd love to have that midfield in our club.
Yeah. All right. We are live and interactive, and our good mate Mick is sitting there patiently with his hand up. So come on board, Mick, and unload. You're on mute, mate, at the moment.
Is that better?
Sir? Yes. How you going, mate?
Well, for the first time ever, I think I went to sleep around half-time watching that game.
No, I couldn't sleep, mate. I was boiling with rage. I don't know how you could possibly go.
I'd gone past that about halfway through the first quarter. Okay. I was about 4 beers in and just couldn't give a shit about the club or football anymore, and ended up going to sleep. And I haven't even rewatched any of it. It wasn't worth watching.
Oh God, no! I couldn't watch it twice.
We were insipid right from the start. Now, I've been sort of a Matthew Nix apologist up until the last probably 6 weeks, but I can't anymore. Like the lack of of ideas, the lack of picking players that are actually playing well, selection integrity, I think Feen calls it. There is none. He just picks his favourites.
Yeah,
and it's setting our club back.
Macca,
it's
shut
not
up
just
and let
him.
Mick speak.
No, I just want to
It's
say
not
to
just
Mick,
him.
yeah, but I want to say though, Mick, the things do you listen to Nick's speeches after a game? Do you ever listen to them?
Yeah, I do sometimes. It's the same one. I could listen to the one this week, or I could listen to the one this time last year.
And you are listening to it because you know that, because it's actually what he
Yeah.
does. He just trots out the same old rubbish week after week, and it's meaningless.
But it's not.
It's meaningless.
It's
Macca.
not just him, though, Macca. It's not just him, Macca. You can have your hate session on Nick's once they jump off. Just hang on a second. It's not just Nick's. It's the whole selection panel. And it's Roo.
Yeah.
It's our football department
Oh yeah, I know.
that's
I agree.
causing this, because it doesn't matter what coach you put in there. I don't give a shit. You could put whatever coach you want to in there at the moment. It's the culture of the club that within 3 years you'll have another Nick's, because it's the culture, and that needs to change. It's the good boys. That's why we end up with total flops like VB as our midfield coach.
Yeah, that's why we can debate about quality of coaches or whatever, but the coach that we need is a coach that has some aura about him, and
Correct.
That's why I've been firm on Nathan Buckley, because I think of all the coaches that are available at the moment, and you don't know whether you could pry John Longmire or someone out, you probably couldn't, but of all the blokes that are currently available, Nathan Buckley is the one that stands out as someone who could walk into the club with enough credibility to say, all right, this is happening. We're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And don't argue with me, right? If we just bring in another up-and-coming assistant, it's not going to be enough to break the cultural lock that is in place at the Adelaide Football Club at the moment. And I hate to harken back to Phil Walsh, but Phil Walsh was the last bloke that was able to come in and go, we're doing it this way. And ever since then, it's been an absolute travesty that we've watched the club just slip back into that mediocrity after Phil was about to shake the whole place up, right? And they were just so quick just to lapse straight back into that bloody comfort zone, corporate franchise bullshit that we've got now. Sorry, Mick, I'm taking your screen time, but that's why I think it's only Buckley that...
You and I both know why they signed Nicks for 2 years.
Oh, of course we do.
Well,
Guess who's out of contract in 2 years? Guess who's out of contract in 2 years?
Why would you?
They're out for Goodwin. Bring another good old boy back. That's why they signed him in for 2 years. Like, he'll do. He'll muddle along. And 100%. Then at the end of 2 years, he wouldn't have won enough games, so we can sack him and bring in Goody. Isn't that 100%. Just going to be awesome?
Well, if you think of that, why the hell would you appoint the bastard? I mean, he's got to win games.
Because he's a bunny. He can stay in there. You can blame it all on him and bring in the saviour in 2 years, Macca.
Yeah, he's just a lame duck.
Exactly.
Well,
he's been set up to fail, and he sets up other players like he's setting up our young ones to fail.
Yeah,
it's putting our club back for years. Like I looked at the stats of our SNFL game. Look at Billy Dowling. He's smashing it like every other bloody week. Do we bring him in? No. We'll rather bring in.
I don't understand.
Leave Laird there. Like honestly, I could reach through the TV screen, grab him by the scruff of the neck, and rip him straight back out of that side. And as for Matt Crouch, I don't call him. He's not called Matt Crouch in my household. He's called the Crab. You only go forward or backwards. You can't go forward. And it's just every time I see him, it's just like, why? Maybe one of them, but we can't have both of them.
But mate, I can't see the magic in Goodwin. I don't get the Goodwin thing because you have a look at Melbourne today.
Oh yeah, but there's no magic in Goodwin. But he's a good old teammate of Bruce, isn't he?
Oh, I get it. Okay. The old mate thing.
Yeah, I don't think Mick's not advocating for Goody. He's just saying that that's what's going to happen. And, but you can say Goody's a premiership coach and all the rest of it, and he is. You can't take that away from him. But there's also been a lot of toxic crap come out of that Melbourne Footy Club since that flag, and I just feel like getting the band back together with Rue and Goodwin, it's fraught with danger in my opinion. I think we need someone outside of the Crows culture who's going to be strong enough to withstand the vice that will envelope them the moment they walk through the door. They've got to be strong enough of character and have enough credibility to say, no, you guys have been doing it your way for the last 20 years. We're going to do it my way for a few years now.
And we had that bloke from Richmond to come in as our football manager.
Who's that, mate?
Yeah.
Oh, Neil Baum.
Neil Baum. We need him as our football
He would
manager.
have been magic actually, because he does have.
He's the one who walk in and say, "You're doing it this way. You get out the club. You piss off. I don't want to see you." He's the one that would do that.
Yeah.
You bring in him and Buckley, and we might have a chance of having a club in.
I must admit,
But what we've got now, it's a joke.
Well, that's very obvious. We are not like, well, we're not only not going anywhere, we're going backwards.
The first 5 minutes, I saw Smith, I think, I don't know, turn over the ball 2 or 3 times and, just hack, kick. I just went to the fridge, grabbed a beer and thought, well, this is going to be shit. And as I said, like, after I finished screaming at the TV, for the first quarter, by halfway through the second quarter, it's like, well, I can't even be bothered.
You were right. You were right.
Could not even be bothered.
Mate,
I've never been, even in our worst times, even when we were getting flogged in 2020, 2021, I was never like that. But now, couldn't give a shit.
Well, because I think the expectations are different now, aren't they, Mick? And he's had long enough. And we're right back where we started, in my opinion. And he hasn't, as I said earlier, where's the side that he's developed? He hasn't transitioned senior players out. He's still playing senior players in key positions, and he's not developed the next generation at all in his whole tenure. So he's had his chance, in my opinion.
Yeah,
all the fan base raves on about how bad our recruitment team is, how shit our recruitment team is. Can you imagine our side at the moment if we didn't have Dawson and Rankin?
Yeah.
But exactly.
Well, and you wouldn't know about our draft selections because,
I know.
There's a case to be made that Chase Jones's development was stunted because of how he was treated early. We've lost other players through either poor talent selection or poor development. We've now got a situation where our number 6 pick is playing on a half-forward flank, and our prized number 1, or our first round pick last year that we actually spent trade collateral on to get to, can't even, has had what, 6 quarters of footy and got
Not
absolutely thrown to the bloody slaughter.
Not even that.
No.
Four quarters over 2 games he's played, and he's played out of position and set up to fail. And
Exactly.
He lost. Nick's lost me. Like, up until that stage, I was like, yeah, maybe. I think I've got on here before and said, look at our assistant coaches. We've got a box full of spuds.
Yeah, you're on the money, mate. On the money, mate.
As soon as he did that to Curtin, it's like that. It's just totally lost me. He's just he set that kid up to fail. And I've heard him say, beginning of the season, I heard him say, "Oh, Billy Downing's don't intend to play him this year." So, why would you say that?
That's
you
right.
You don't know what's going to happen. Why would you say that? And it's just totally confused and lost me. And I don't understand. Our midfield is playing bland foot. You've got Laird and Crouch. Fuck them both off. They got to go.
Well, we've been saying that. How long have we been saying this for, Mick? How long have we been slowing? The proof will be, like, this is a watershed moment for the club, in my opinion. We're one game away from the bye. If the 2 games, sorry, if we don't see some changes in selection philosophy now, when the season is well and truly beyond our grasp, if we don't see some changes in selection policy now, then you know that the coach is just playing for his own survival. He's already lost control of the development path of a lot of these kids. But if he doesn't, he's, in my opinion, he shouldn't last any longer. But if they're going to continue to use him as a coach, if they don't basically force him to change his selection philosophies, then we cooked. We may as well just pack it in.
If we don't drop 5 players from that disaster and bring in at least 2 debutants and bring back in Curtin.
Well, and we have to. Mick, we got a few blokes waiting, so thank you very much, mate, for your kind thoughts as always.
Yeah, but well done as always, Mick. No, well done.
I'll tell you what, it took a lot for me to drop one F-bomb, I can tell you, because they were about ready to flow.
I know how you feel. I do know how you feel.
All right, mate. Thank you very much.
I'll get you another night.
Cheers. See you, mate.
Yeah. Bye.
Alrighty, where are we? We've got, I think Thom was next. How you going, Thom? 2 weeks in a row, mate. Come on board.
Yes. Hello, you got me there?
Yeah, got you loud and clear. How you going, mate?
Yeah, very, very good. Yes, too, am very emotional, just so frustrated. But it comes down to a lot of people feel disrespected and just this pig-headed way that the club and Matthew Nicks communicate with us is very frustrating. And the platitudes he just rolls out, we're all sick to death of them. But I was present, and now that I'm not aligned with any particular media, I can say more things. But I was present at a phone call when Matthew Nicks was hired, and I think this epitomises how this whole tenure has gone. In that there were a few candidates that were going for that gig, and one of them was Gary Buddha Hocking. And I'm not saying whether he would have been the right coach or not, but I'm just saying this sums up how our club does business. He rang someone and he was livid because he had found out that he had not gotten the job by way of media and tweets and getting leaked out. So the club didn't have enough respect to give him the call themselves. And the reason that it unfolded that way apparently was he was sat in front of who was our ex-CEO, Andrew Fagan, and they asked him what he would fix and change, and he delivered it straight to them what he would do, and they were apparently highly offended by that, and that's why they didn't go with him, because they were offended by it, because some of the things he was saying undermined some of their views. And Matthew Nicks is a very, very good people person, very, very good at, to speak plainly, sucking up the right way. And
he's a salesperson, Thom.
Yes,
he's a salesperson.
And that is, in his view, is why he got the gig. And nothing has changed since that point in time. So it just, I just feel livid at the disrespect the club shows in its communication and the way it treats everyone.
Well, I heard similar stories once previously when I think it was the first time that Scott Burns went for the position, and I think it might have been when Sanderson got the job. And I heard that Scott Burns similarly had a fairly, a similar view of the club, that there needed to be a lot of changes, and it actually put blokes' noses out of joint, and that's why it wasn't considered.
Yeah.
So we've got form in that regard, but it doesn't surprise, as much as it's terrible to listen to, Tom, and I appreciate you telling us that story. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Oh, it's not surprising. Yeah.
Because they just want blokes that will drink the bathwater and will play the corporate game and will be presentable in front of the press and all the rest of it. It must have killed them to have a bloke like bloody Phil Walsh in around the club for as sadly as short amount of time as we had, because it would have gone against every grain, every fibre in that football club would have been shaken up by Phil's no-nonsense approach, his desire to have honest conversations, his desire to push standards at the club. And as I said earlier, it made me so sad to see us fall back off those mantras so quickly. So your story doesn't surprise me at all, Tom, but it's terribly disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah. And look, before I go, the pillars that are in place obviously need to be changed in those leadership positions with Nix, Adam Kelly. I mean, what the fuck does he even do? Like, he's just so vague in the way he speaks, and I reckon that's the way he conducts everything as well. Just, a positive thought. Visualize if Nathan Buckley walked in and sat in that chair, and Neil Baum walked through and replaced, Adam Kelly and that. But they would look at what's been happening, and at first they would giggle for a bit, and they would be laughing for a while. Like, well, you don't play the kids in their rightful positions. Oh, yeah. No, this is how you actually develop them, and then. And then finally they would sit in the seat and make the changes that would need to happen.
I think you're 100% on the money, mate.
B Packer makes a really good point in the chat. He says Tex and Sloan, etc., should have carried Walsh's legacy forward better. And do you know what?
Yeah.
That's the bit that really shits me, because do you know what legacy Tex and Sloan pulled for the next 3 or 4 years? That stupid collective minds bullshit, right? That had absolutely no basis and no meaning. It was an absolute pile of crap, unadulterated crap, right?
Poison.
And yet prior to that, they had a passionate bloke, who championed the cause and who spoke the truth and who had very simple messaging. That's the bloke that they should have been listening to, not some bloody alleged bloody child molester, bloody spinning shit because he went to a drug fest in the middle of Nevada or wherever the hell they put it. Like, that's the stupidity of this club. It's the stupidity of this club. They had the answer right there in front of them. And, Phil passed, and that's all the rest. That's what's happened. But Phil put in place some very key mantras about being honest and putting your best foot forward and not shying away from difficult conversations, and all we had to do as a club is just carry that forward. But 2 years later, we're going to a witch doctor to tell us about mental strength, and then 2 years after that, we're bringing in psychologists to try and rebuild the damage that was caused by that witch doctor. What an absolute bunch of idiots running that football club. God damn it.
Yes, and the poison that was left, and so many broken trust aspects. There was stuff revealed about partners and these sorts of things that could just completely broke the side, broke people in it. And a fair few of those people are still there. And as you have said, Feen, that it's an intangible thing, but there's drops of that poison still kind of there. Anyway, thanks for having me. It looks like you got a few calls lined up. So, good show, guys.
Oh, mate, that was entertaining. Mate. Thank you.
All right. Arab, come on board, mate. You've been waiting, and we've got Nuz sitting there too, so we'll get to you in a second, Nuz. Arab, come on board, mate. How you going?
Hello, guys. How are you today?
I'm still absolutely shitted off, to be honest.
I'm surprised you guys are because I thought we'd be used to this by now. For the past 2 years, we've been having the same crap
No, I would
over and
no,
over. It feels like.
no. We reached another level last on Saturday. Mate, that was another level of shitdom. Another level of it.
You know what really annoyed me being at that game was the fact that seeing senior players give, for example, Roy Laird in one of the instances I can remember clearly was he gave started screaming at Rochelle. I don't know what he did, but he did something wrong. And then a few seconds later, he stuffs up. And then it got my attention, and then I look, and Keys, who's a senior player in there or whatever, he one of the young kids does something wrong, he gives it to them, but then 2 seconds later he stuffs up and he's just there put his head down. It's like the whinging does not stop from the senior players. I know Rochelle does it, but he does it out of frustration. While the senior players do it just because they can and because they have the authority. And I think, and it's just so frustrating. That's the thing that really got me on the weekend. Was how about you guys play the game and stop giving the kids crap? What are you doing?
Mate,
chase your man.
We've seen before that this club is the tail wagging the dog at times, and I think we're in that situation again where the tail is wagging the dog, and we've got a senior group, and the coach has cozied up to the senior group. And if I was a younger player at the Adelaide Crows right now, I'd be heavily pissed off, and I'd be asking my manager to field whatever phone calls were coming my way, because under this leadership and with this senior group of blokes, we've heard the story about Rory Laird not wanting to go back to half-back, and Brodie Smith getting played irrespective of how bad his form is, and etc. 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 There must be a disconnect between the senior players and the coach and the younger players, in my opinion, at the moment. Has to be.
Well, you take it, Fane. You just have a look at our players that are supposed to be our leadership group. Have a look who the players that comprise it. Of those players, I think there's at least 3, if not 4, that you said shouldn't be in the bloody side.
Yeah.
Yeah, Smith is one of them. He's every week. It seems like he costs us at least 3 goals. It's like bring out a bingo and see how many times he can cost us a goal. I bet you he would have cost us at least half the goals every week by now. It's insane. It's why is this guy in there? He can barely run. He can barely kick. He can barely play. How are we as fans, who's never really coached in the highest level, see this, and it's so blatant obvious, and the club who brought in these coaches who have experience, who have played the game at the highest level, cannot see this? It doesn't make sense to me. I just don't understand how that's possible. It's so weird to me. It's how do you not see that guy cannot play the game? How do you see that guy costs us 3 or 4 goals every week? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but look at that leadership group. Murphy, for God's sake, he probably couldn't even sell bloody T-shirts before. He's bloody hopeless. And Laird, well, we've spoken enough about Laird. We've spoken enough about Smith. Who else is in there, Feen, that I've missed?
Well, look, the thing of it is, Macca, and I've said this before, Laird did a fantastic job stepping into the breach when we didn't have an inside midfielder, when Matty Crouch was doing grinds and all the rest of it, Brodie Smith has been a good footballer for us, over the journey. I've got mixed feelings about Brodie. These Tex, these players, they've served the club, they've done their time, they've had their chance. The issue that this club has always had is that they can't iterate the squad, right? They have not got the balls to be able to phase senior players out into peripheral roles and then eventually into retirement or a trade to another club, so they keep and it's Scotty Thompson, Richie Douglas, all those blokes. We've seen David McKay. We've seen it 100 times before with various players that just continue to play until they drop off a cliff. Rory Sloane would have still played this season had it not been for his eye injury. We just seem to have this situation where the senior players get into a cliquey situation where they rule the roost, and they seem to be able to rule the coach. and there's no gumption by the club to be able to roll the squad over, iterate the squad, and bring in new talent as it comes in and actually play them in meaningful spots. And that's been the downfall of this club for the last 20 years, in my opinion. And even before that, it took Malcolm Blight to come in to ditch McDermott, McGuinness and Jarman, etc. Back in the day, we seem to have this strange need to... that the players are bigger than the club. You know, these players seem to think that they're bigger than the club. They're not bigger than the club, and we don't seem to have the strength as a club or as a coaching group or whatever to be able to push these players to the sidelines. And I don't understand why it is.
Yeah, I personally, you know, and I might be being overly dramatic, but I think the club is at the crossroads, and if it's going to continue down the same path that it is now, it is going to be a shit club for a long, long time. I think they've got an alternative. The alternative is admit you got it wrong. Now, that's the biggest problem. They have to admit that they got it wrong, that they appointed the wrong guy, they've gone down the wrong process, etc., etc., etc. And if they don't do that, we're doomed for a long, long time. If they just continue to, if they say Nick will come good, yeah, or he'll be the man, we are going to go backwards. And I don't know whether, if I live another 10 years, whether I'll even see us in the bloody finals if we're going to do that. But, yeah, well, this guy's just taking us backwards.
I don't understand how a bloke like Tim Silvers can come out with a straight face and say we see Matthew Nicks as our next premiership coach, because like it's all right to back a guy in and to say yeah we think he's the right man for the job, etc., etc. But on what basis are you making such a comment? That was such an outlandish comment. Yeah, Matty Nicks has a 35% win-loss record, right? And it'd be worse if there wasn't teams like North Melbourne and West Coast around. On what basis? On what basis have you made that comment?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he made that ridiculous comment. Because sorry, Macca. Let's let Arab speak. He's on. Sorry, mate.
Sorry. I think he has to. Like, you're not gonna hear him come out and be like, "Oh, the coach is crap," and we're not gonna back him.
No, but he doesn't have to. But he doesn't have to be so definitive, Arab. He can back the coach without saying we think he's going to be our next premiership coach. I mean, that was just ridiculous, surely, mate. He can say, "Oh, look, we're happy with Matt at this time." Why not just be honest?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, just one last thing before I head off is, let's be honest. This is not going to happen. Nothing is going to change if the members keep coming in and if the money keeps going in. We can keep going on about this, like the same stuff that it just happens week in, week out, but nothing's going to happen unless money stops coming in. And that's unfortunately the biggest cancer at the club, to be honest with you. That's just the way we're run, and it's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. All right, mate. Thanks very much.
Thank you. See ya.
Well done, Aaron.
1990, I have seen your 73 posts about wanting stats. We will get there, mate. We are live and interactive, don't forget. Nuz, how you going?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes,
mate,
we can.
Your beautiful voice was coming through loud and clear.
Oh, rightio. It's just okay voice. It's not great.
No, he's good.
Another thing, I think that Daniel Curtin. Do I do a good impression? Fucking hell!
Love it.
You know what? We had a big test and we failed miserably. And it the 27 points doesn't do it justice. It felt like 60 because in reality it was. We really started playing well when they gave up and stopped trying. Simple as that. So.
Nuz, have you got a compressor on your mic?
Oh, shit. I might do, but it's through this. Wait a minute.
It's just chopping a little bit.
One sec. Is that better?
Yeah.
No.
A little bit.
Okay.
You're a bit quiet.
I think I can hear the compressor pumping away, that's all.
Really? Oh.
Or a gate or something or other.
Yeah. All right. Wait a minute. One sec. Is that better?
No, that
No,
was
it's worse.
worse. You were better before.
Okay. What about
There
now?
you go. Look at that. Look at you.
You've done it.
Hey, look at me go. Pressing. I literally didn't. I just twisting the knobs. I had no idea what it's going on. Anyway.
That's what she said.
I literally yeah, that's me in the bed. No, let's get off this. It's not midnight yet. Hey, I've got a podcast. I did an emergency one, and I just want to spruik it quickly. I won't.
Yeah,
the
what are
line
you
because
using
it's
me as a free bloody platform for your advertisements of your bloody silly little podcast?
not- Yeah, bloody hell. All right. It's research, Sean. Come on. Hey,
No,
it's,
go for it.
Yeah, look, it's really
You're a bit
simple
quiet,
and-
Nuz, to be honest. Nuz, your mic's a bit quiet.
Need some volume, mate.
All right, there we go. So, the one thing that I thought that was, we will talk about the kids in the mid, and I knew it was the right path, and I wanted to do some research about why and how and when, and looking at other rebuilds. And the podcast goes mainly about the Brisbane rebuild, the Richmond rebuild in their dynasty, and Carlton's, oddly enough, because they were shit for so long, and what did they do to fix it? And it really does come down simply to giving the kids the keys, and something else that's very peculiar that I didn't even think of this at the start, but I kept noticing something, and I love patterns, I love numbers, and I was looking, it was like unraveling a piece of twine. It was great. It's win percentage and the age of the demographic of players in your squad. And it led me to think how rebuilds work in the first instance. So you got to be crap to start with, right? But how crap is crap? And if your development of these kids is bad because you've got bad coaches, you can almost give up immediately. So the key is having good coaches, having the correct guys as senior leaders, and then culling, that's the important one, culling the right players that are not going to be part of the future. So you can look at the Brisbane, Richmond, and Carlton rebuild, and there's three common identifying factors. They all got rid of the dead weight almost immediately. It's this uncanny thing. Within a year and a half, they realised and identified about 8 players on each list and said, you are not good enough, get the fuck out of the club immediately. And I don't know if it was on the back of coaches or whatever, or I don't know why their decision was like that immediately, but it's really strange. Like, only just 2 years. So I'm hoping that this is the shining light that we have, and the names that stand out that had bad development was Jones, McHenry, Murphy, O'Brien, Keys, and I think 1 or 2 others. And they're the common links. Right now, they're the 22 to 26, and they should be good. We all know that the recruiting was terrible for a 4-year period there. But it's not only it's the coaches and development. Now, I watched Chase Jones closely in his junior year because I'd caught wind that we were going to be, getting him. He was very good in the under-18s. He was very good. I was like, I'm glad we're getting this guy, really. So where's his development gone? We all know that we all hear the stories about assistant coaches and all these other coaches and whatnot, ruining kids' careers. And you can't tell me that Melbourne, for 10 years, recruited badly. Trengove, Scully, and there's about 10 others. Morton, Jimmy Tumpus from Woodville West Torrens. They weren't garbage. They were developed badly. But what makes these clubs successful with a rebuild? The final thing is they got rid of them and they stopped persisting with them. That's as simple as that. So we need to cull Jones, McHenry, Robb, Keys, Murphy, and about 4 others, and just say, I'm sorry we ruined your career. I'm sorry we were shithouse, but you need to perform better. They've played 60, 90, 110 games, and they're shit. And it's as simple as that. We cannot move forward.
One thing that I've noticed, Nuz, because I've done a bit of that similar sort of analysis, and what I've noticed is that when a squad gets turned over, there's usually a core 6 or 7 young lads that basically carry through, and you've got peripherals that sort of come and go, and some stick and some don't. You've got a couple of seniors that are still, good value, and they sort of stick at the top end, but you've got that core group that comes through, and you see that improvement from about 50 games through to about 100, games where the squad really develops. We don't have that, and we have not had that, and the simple reason is because we hang on to our senior players for far too long. And that's the point I was making earlier, that we don't iterate it. We don't have the ability to iterate our squad. We don't seem to be able to transition, because the senior players, for whatever reason, hang on, and you can only assume it's because the senior players are wagging the dog. Whether that's because of contracts or because of our location and our desire to keep those players around, I'm not quite sure what it is. But the facts are there that we don't have enough room in our best 22 or 23 to carry that core group of 6 to 8 younger or newer players through to the next, window, if you like. Whereas most of the other teams that have been successful over the last 20 years, that's exactly what they've done.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask, Nels, and the fact that he nominated the 6 players that he said they haven't been developed properly and they should be got rid of. But the problem is, what about the guys that are senior guys that are no good enough? How do you manage that as well?
We just have to be ruthless. Look, I think this Crouch injury is a blessing in disguise, because we're going to see that our midfield just isn't that bad. If we go to Laird against Richmond and say, oh, can you please do this? And we just need to have one game with just the kids. And then all of a sudden we're going to realise, shit, it's not that bad. We didn't get, pantsed in the midfield. We all know that these kids can play to an extent. We just haven't seen them given the full keys yet. And it just goes back to just statistics, looking at rebuilds of past and getting the right players to lead. So in terms of older players, we have Dawson, we have Walker. He might go on another year. But you look at Richmond's 2017 premiership side, they did not have one person over the age of 30. Simple as that. That's right. Yet 2 years prior, so actually in 13, 14, 15, they made finals. They shat the bed in 16, won it in 17. Those years in 13, 14, 15, they were mediocre. They were in a similar position to, I guess, what we were in in 18, 19. They got rid of 10 players over the age of 28 within those 2 years. Think about, would we ever do that?
And they were players of the calibre of your Brodie Smiths, good solid club servants, but their time had come, sort of thing. They weren't, they hung on to Revolt and Dusty, obviously, but they were, and Cochin, but apart from those 3, they were probably the only 3 key senior players that they hung on to. It would be akin to us hanging on to Tex and Crouch.
Yeah. Well, they've all had decent careers. Shane Tuck, Jake King, Dan Jackson, Ricky Pettit, Nick Newman, Troy Chaplin, Delidio. They're all decent servants. Yeah. But they're not going to get you to the promised land. It's as simple as that. And
which is the definition of the players that we're talking about. Laird, Smith, Crouch, those players. It's the very definition.
Well, the thing about you were saying about these core kids coming through, and this is where I'm a bit of an optimist, and I reckon we have recruited pretty damn well in the last 2.5, whatever it is, years. Mm-hmm. And you see Saligo, Rochelle. I'll rate Rochelle really highly. These sort of talented players don't fall off trees. I know he needs to work on stuff. He hasn't even played 50 games yet. Hopefully he'll get there. I'd still keep him. I wouldn't trade him, because he's a kind of a freak in that regard. But you can look at him, Saligo, Phil Thorpe, Michael Laney. I could name about 8 people that are that core. It's just that they're really young. So this is where we need to be accepting of. We might not make finals next year, but I think the club is scared that we're going to all riot the place if we don't make it next year. We're not going to. If we can see the future and what we're trying to do, I think we'll be right. They'll realise that we're pretty forgiving.
Well, it's not about forgiveness. I think we were all aboard in the previous couple of years, mate, when we could see, we're just developing and la 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 la. And then last year it started off really well because the kids got the keys a little bit. Between rounds 3 and 7 or whatever, it was looking really good. And then the club seemed to just get enamoured by the thought of finals, and all development went out the window. And we were on board during that period of time. The reason why we're not on board now is because the club has lost its way in terms of honouring the development paths of these kids at the expense of, sneaking into 8th and seeing what happens.
Yeah, no, we've definitely lost our way. The proof's in the pudding. I've done the research. It's up to the club now to say, what are we going to do? Are we going to become the next Essendon? Or are we going to be, and have to wait 25 years for a final? Or are we going to actually make some tough calls that need to be made, cut off the foot to save the body, and cull these players because we know that their development's been ruined. We know that they're over the hill, and just say, here you go, 18 players, away you go.
Well, no, I don't think you're right. I don't think you're right, because the proof of the pudding is not in the pudding. The proof of the pudding's in the eating. That's one of my pet hates when people say the proof's in the pudding. Get off my podcast.
No, just before you go, I just want to ask you a question. How does this all go if you retain Nick's as coach? Does your theory work with him as coach, or do you need a decent coach as well?
Look, I think it can. It has to be only if the younger players believe that Nick's is the right guy. Because if he's lost them, then you have to move on. You just have to. It doesn't matter what it costs. Otherwise, you're just delaying the inevitable.
But wouldn't you?
If he's still younger players, then you need to change almost every other assistant coach, because we've seen what they do and it's pretty average. Simple as that.
Well, you'd have to say that on the basis of what we've been seeing and what we've been served up and the reaction after the match by the coaches, you'd have to say that these coaches aren't the right coaches.
Richmond in 2016 stuck fat with Hardwick. That's one example, and there's other examples of getting a new coach, and it does breathe new life into the place. It's, we're not in the inner sanctum. I don't know what Saligo, Rochelle, and Thilthorpe are thinking, but if they still got Nicks, and I'd be very happy if we changed every assistant coach, and they were helping Nicks. And he wasn't so pig-headed in his decisions, and he was open to making some new calls and thinking, oh, that's a good idea. Yep, let's do that. But
there's no evidence that he's going to be not pig-headed. No, sorry, mate.
Yeah, well, and that's... No. And that's what I mean. We have to ask those questions. That's the point, isn't it?
Very good. Get around the Sensible Crow podcast, and always appreciate you coming on, mate. Good on you.
Yeah, see you now.
Take it easy.
Whoa, Macca, just probably 45 minutes of therapeutic venting by the CrowCast family.
Well,
but that's what we're here for.
Yeah, but I think they're entitled to more than that. They're entitled to see the club react to that venting. They're entitled. I mean, we react to what we're given. We were given crap, shit, whatever you want to call it. And if the club can't accept that's going to be their norm, if they're going to accept that that's their norm, they're going to be lost in the wilderness forever. I
think now, because let's be honest. Let's be honest for a second, Macca. A reasonably large proportion of the Crows membership are older people, right? And those older people have stuck with the club by and large since its inception. They were probably people in their 40s when the Crows came about. They're now in their 50s and 60s. They're part of that old Kick-a-Vic tradition, and, all that sort of stuff, and they've stuck fat with the Crows through all of that. These people are getting older, and the next generation of football supporters coming through, whilst you get that, somewhat that family bias, kids want to barrack for a team that's winning, right?
Yes, they do. That's the whole point.
Or at least winning more often than losing. And like if you think about a kid who became aware of football in 2017, who was probably 5 or 6, 7, 8 years old in 2017, that kid's now 15. Right? And during that time, he's seen the Crows absolute shit. And even back, prior to that, in 2013 and all the rest of it, there's a generation of people that have grown up with the Crows being pretty bloody average. And it only occurred to me the other day, I'm lucky enough to have seen the Crows win 2 flags. But there are kids now who, from the moment they probably became aware of football to their young adulthood, who have basically been following a team that's no better than St Kilda.
Correct.
Now, at the moment, the club is not feeling the backlash of that because there's still all these dyed-in-the-wool members that have been around for donkeys that don't want to give up their tickets and all that, and that's great. But it's a bit like Tex Walker, Macca. When the cliff hits on that generation, it's going to hit pretty hard. And if the club doesn't start prioritising success on the field, if the club continues to pander to these members who, let's face it, are going to turn up whether we win or lose right now, the club actually doesn't realise that it's in a great position where they can basically blood a whole new a team and the members are going to turn up. But that's not always going to be the case, and we are fast approaching that generational change in our football club membership, and they are going to be trying to sell tickets to members who have not witnessed, we haven't even made the finals since 2017. We haven't made the finals for 7 years, Macca. Can you believe that?
Well, it's a double whammy, mate, and this is what won me a bloody Guernsey when I went into the competition, is because of the fact that it's not only that generational change that's coming through. The problem is the little kids don't like to be associated with losers. So, with these kids that are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they don't want to be a Crow supporter. They want to be a Port supporter because Port are in the finals all the time. So,
that's right.
And I made that particular point that, you've got that particular handicap that you're not in there. So what you have to do, you have to go out of your way 10 times more than you're doing to actually do something to cater for those children, to make them think the Crows people are lovely people by having special functions for them, special things to make them feel that they want to be part of this particular club because they're not doing it on field. That's the problem.
100% right. And it's gonna come with a rush for Adelaide. If we go through another season or two not making the finals and not looking like it and just bumbling along and disrespecting the supporters with the way that we publish bloody best players in the twos, for God's sakes, lying to our supporters and trotting out bullshit lines all the time. People just like the current rusted on members will wear it, will buy it because it's their entertainment. It's the Crows are their team and they've always been their team and they're going to stick fat. But this next generation are not going to swallow it. Crows aren't even going to be on their radar. The Crows are going to be the loser club.
Yeah,
right? Can you imagine that this is where we're at as a football club, that we could be considered by a whole generation of kids as the loser club?
Well, and that's how that's a distinct possibility. As long as we're going like we're doing and going downhill and not going anywhere, that's what will happen. Because I'm amazed at the number of kids I see now in Power Guernseys rather than in Crows Guernseys. Once upon a time, there used to be only Crows Guernseys because Port used to have the tarps all over the seats and all the rest of it. But now it's the wheels turn. They're in finals all the time. They miss now and again, but at least they get in the bloody finals. We 2017, we haven't been in finals since then. That's 7
No.
years. That's a lot of kids. It's a lot of kids,
That's right.
and that's gonna cost down the track. And so the only way you get them back is through success. The only way you get success is to have the right people and the right players. At the moment, they haven't got all the totally right players. But if they had the right people, they'd get more out of these players, and they'd also then become more attractive, and they would find it a lot easier to get better players from other clubs. And they've got to get their drafting 100% spot on, and they've got to develop players out of the... There are players there in the twos that have potential, and they have to develop them so that they can become senior players and good players that will help us move up the ladder so that we do get into the finals, so we become an attractive proposition for young kids and for other people. So that's, at the moment, what they don't understand is that you stay loyal to Nix, you stay loyal to this, you stay loyal to that, and you go down the tube, well, that's where your club will go. Same way.
Well, that's right, and it's a self-perpetuating cycle, right? You know, Nix keeps picking the senior players who've not delivered any time previously. So what does he think they're going to deliver now? The club keeps, Nix for another 2 years, so he hasn't delivered anything. So why is that going to change? We stick with the same board and the same football director. They've not delivered in the past, so why do we think that's going to change? The problem is, Macca, at the moment. And this is why it's so important, and we are going to be driving this and driving this and driving this. And Bobby, on the chat, you just took the words out of my mouth. There is no accountability. There's no accountability because the club board are not accountable to the members. The club board is accountable to the AFL. And it's so important that when we get to 2027, it is so important that the members make sure that the club is handed over back to the membership as is in the Constitution, and we will be pushing this hard, Macca, because if the club remains accountable to the AFL, then winning it will be secondary, right? Because our primary KPI to the AFL is to remain financially viable, right? That's our primary KPI. Secondary is winning games of football. So we must, because we are acting at the moment, and we have acted for years and years and years like an unaccountable club, right? A club that isn't accountable to its membership base. And the reason for that is because they're not accountable to the membership base.
No, not one little bit. Not one little bit.
So it is really, really important. And like I said, we will be championing this on this podcast as much as possible. That when the time comes, it's 2027, when the time comes that our contractual obligations under the purchase agreement are finalised and the AFL no longer needs representation or veto powers on board elections, that our constitution changes, the AFL are taken out of it, and we become a membership-driven club. Because until that happens, there will not be enough pressure on the board to facilitate change.
Yeah,
the fans keep turning up, but like we're just saying, they're not always going to turn up. The next generation of fans is not going to turn up if they keep going down this road.
Sadly, you are right. And the thing that concerns me is that if the club were to listen to this, to read what the fans are saying out there in the chat, they'll think we're just a mob of bloody whingers. And rather than looking at the reality of that there is a problem amongst their camp, because it's them. They would have to admit that they're wrong. And that's going to be the hard part, thing, because the problem is the people who've made the decision would have to be the ones that recognise they've made a bloody mistake, and they have to admit that they've got it wrong.
And that's not going to happen. And unless you've got the ability to get them out against their will, which we currently don't have, then they'll just continue on. And that's exactly the point that I'm making, Macca. GP on the chat asked, "What's this purchase agreement?" When the situation changed with regards to us buying back our license, from the SANFL. Part of the agreement was that the AFL would have veto powers on our board composition for the first, I don't know how long it was, 10 years or something. That period of time is up in 2027, and that's when we have the opportunity to return the power to the membership.
Yeah, so that's going to be the problem, because honestly, but they have to, the people that appointed Nick, the people that appoint, well, it goes even higher than that, doesn't it? The board are going to have to admit they made a mistake. You know, the guy that is our chief executive, nice man, but he hasn't got a persona. He's got no clout. He's got no carriage in the industry. We've got a coach that hasn't got the answers, and all he does is just shuffle this. But instead of taking chances, he just goes for safety and hoping that that'll happen. It doesn't happen, and it's week after week it doesn't happen. And every so often we have a win, and that makes people happy, and so the pressure is off. But as you said, you just got to look backwards. Look back, and you'll see that we've done nothing since 2017. And so
that's right.
And then you look forward, and I can't see any light. I can't see any light.
And I think that's where we're at. That's where we're at now, Mac, isn't it? It's, you know, people were willing to tolerate the development phases, you know, 2020 and 2021 and COVID and all the rest of it. We're supposed to be at the back end of that. You know, if you're a Hawthorn supporter, and we'll go through some stats in a minute because a few people are getting a little bit impatient about that. But if you supported Hawthorn at the moment, you could see some light. Good young players on every line, you know, some really talented players coming through, and they're starting to get results with a plan that is obvious. I mean, Hawthorn's plan against us was obvious. You know, they set up their grid defensively, and they were very hard to kick through. They protected the corridor, and when they turn they get a lot of forward half turnovers. I think they kicked 6 or 7 goals from forward half turnovers. You know, they press up, they press hard. It's not dissimilar to how Al Clarkson used to have them set up back in the day, and you'd expect that with Sammy Mitchell coaching them. So, you know, if you're a Hawthorn fan, you can see some light. I don't know what our game plan is. I don't know what our strengths are. We're still whinging about the same players we were whinging about in 2017. And you just, at the end of the day, you just, like Mick said earlier, you end up turning the bloody TV off because it's just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, look, I thought this week was the culmination of it, that we put up with it, and we put up with it, and put up with it. And that, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure there are others the same. This, to me, was the turning point where I just can't take any more of this shit. I just can't take it. I can't take it that they think this is okay. I can't take it. They think that coach is an AFL coach. I just can't take it anymore. In the sense that because we don't have any value forward to look forward to.
It's depressing, isn't it, Macca? And it's demoralising after a while. I must admit, I was gobsmacked at halftime of that Hawthorn game, and I felt very much like Mick, that I just can't watch it anymore.
I was gutted.
You know, it gets very hard to run a podcast about a club that we all love, and you think you find yourself thinking, why do I love this club? Because so much about this club is wrong. And I think it's the idea of this club, the premise of this club that I love, the fact that it is an Adelaide club, the fact that it does represent the SANFL, the fact that it is, you know, us versus Victoria, and the fact that it's not Port Adelaide, who I can't stand, right? That's the premise of this club. That's why I love the club. But by God, they don't make themselves very lovable, do they?
They make no effort to make themselves lovable. I mean, they are one area in which they're very good. They put up little stories about players. They put up little videos here and there, and that I call them pacifiers. The idea is take your eye off the fact that we're playing absolutely shithouse football, that we're absolutely playing the wrong players, that we're doing everything wrong. We've got a coach that's bloody hopeless. But look, We're going to tell you all about that player. Here's a picture. Here's a story about him.
Yeah.
Here's a nice little video of a nice goal that got kicked. It's all distraction thing. It's just distraction. It's to take your eye off the ball that we're a heap of shit.
And then when you get too loud, Mac, when you make too much of a noise, the footy director and champion of the club and bloke adored by so many Crows fans tells you to go and support another club if you don't like it. That's the level of fucking arrogance that is in our football club. And we don't deserve it. We don't deserve it.
Possibly one of the worst things I've ever seen come out of a football club was that particular statement, that if we didn't like it, we could go back for another club. Now, nobody in their right mind who wants their club to succeed and then they're official in it would make a statement like that. That was insanity by Roo. Absolutely.
And he never
insanity.
bloody apologised. He never apologised. He said that he was wrong, but he never apologised. And in his heart of hearts, I don't think he thinks he was wrong, because they're so bloody arrogant, right? And we've followed this club since its inception. The club wouldn't have been around if it wasn't for us. You know, the passionate South Australian supporters are the ones that made a composite side from South Australia a viable proposition in 1990. Okay? Roo wouldn't have had a bloody career at the Adelaide Football Club and won 7 All-Australians at the Adelaide Football Club, etc., 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 if it wasn't for the 45,000 fans turning up every week, good or bad, win or lose, every week, we'd turn up to support them. And then the first time we question this club, that's what spews out of his fucking entitled mouth. And we're supposed to follow that? Come on. Yeah. I know that happened 6 months ago, but that really got to me. That was almost the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And the fact that he has not been contrite, the fact that he has been invisible in the media for years, apart from his own paid platforms, he's never come out. When the going is tough, he's never come out and had anything to say. He sits there on his breakfast show and tries to be unbiased. He sits there on Fox Footy and tries to be unbiased. He's the football director at our club. Do your fucking job, Roo. Do your job and start respecting the people that have made this, that have propped this club up for the last 25 years. Grow some balls, sack the coach, and start acting like a football club instead of a corporate franchise.
Yeah, 100% right, Bean. I mean, what we want is a plan for success. And a plan for success is not saying, well, okay, we'll do this with the coach, we'll do that, and we'll try and do this. You know, look, at times we in life all do something wrong. I've done things wrong.
Of course.
I know you don't believe it. I know you think I'm perfect, but no, I have done things wrong. No,
let's just move on.
yeah, but being serious, we've all made. Look, I had some positions of great responsibility, and sometimes I made decisions wrong, but I acted very, very quickly to correct them.
Well, you got to be humble, right? You got to be humble. You got to be able to accept your shortcomings,
mate. I made most of the decisions I made were correct, but I also would, because you make 1,000 decisions, you're going to make some that are wrong. So the ones I made wrong, I corrected very, very quickly. And at the moment, what we've got is a club that's made a lot of wrong decisions, and they're living with them rather than and hoping that they could just pacify people with little pictures here and a video here. But it doesn't know the fact that we're a heap of shit. We're just travelling like a heap of shit, and we're going to stay that way. And I can't see how it's going to change with the people that are running it. So if you're in the board, you should be looking at that and saying we've made the wrong decisions. And then you should, there's only one thing to do when you know you've made the wrong decision, is to correct it.
Yeah, and you know, because we're all in the same boat. Everyone's in the same boat. We've all made bad decisions in our time. What it comes down to is a level of personal integrity, and your integrity is often measured by what your motivation is, right? So, you know, you make a decision wanting a certain outcome, and if that outcome isn't achieved or you didn't handle it the right way or whatever, you can sit back and reflect, but usually measure it against what your desired outcome was in the first place.
Correct.
And what we've got here is a situation where there's no accountability. So what we're seeing is a board that is probably assessing itself against a set of KPIs or desired outcomes that has very little to do with winning premierships. It has a lot to do with corporate visibility and our balance sheet and being a good corporate citizen and getting out amongst the schools and all that sort of stuff. But it actually hasn't got very much to do with winning premierships. Because if it had, and if those people on the board had a level of integrity, then they would have already made the call themselves, wouldn't they? So the two options, they either lack integrity or their desired outcomes are very different to the fan base. It can't be both.
Sometimes, you're in a situation where they are on the board where there are things that aren't right, but there isn't that little thing that lights the fuse that makes it happen. But I think this week was that little fuse lit that should make things happen. And if the board are comfortable to go with it, then they are never going to make a change, because that was embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
Mate, remember when we did a little thing and got over 1,000 signatures to the club to to try and instigate a review of the club and all the rest of it, and we probably played a small part in the massive public pressure on the club to do that.
We did.
And remember how very, very, very quietly that review went from a whole of club review to a football department review?
Yes.
Do you remember how that happened really quietly?
Well, yes, but eventually...
And who are we talking about now? We're talking about non-football department. I mean, the football department have accountability for our on-field success, but we're talking about the people who appoint those people. And those people, even in that review, were not held accountable. They absolved themselves of any blame. Remember? They absolved themselves of any blame. Jason, Michael, what's his name? Pav, I always get confused with his old man because his old man was my PE teacher. Come in and have a look at our football. Hey?
Pavlich.
Yeah, Matthew. Come in, have a look at our football department and tell us what's wrong with our football department. Don't look at us. Don't look at our chairman. Don't look at our board. Don't look at our operations or anything like that. You just look at our football department. That right there tells you that they are not prepared to be accountable because they sat back and absolved themselves. The first major review this club has had for a long, long time, since the ad hoc review when Blighty came in and threw the furniture out. The first major piece of scrutiny at our club for a long, long time, and the board and the admin sat back and said, it's not us. Go and check out the footy department. That's where the problem is. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you exactly what we're looking at, mate. It tells you that the incompetent people are still incompetent.
Yeah. And Surf in the chat says Pav and Dunstall paid stooges. No, they weren't. They did what they were told to do.
They had a given brief.
And if you listen to Dunstall in the year or two after that, he was quite invested in what was happening at the Crows. But you can tell now his interest has waned simply because we're just doing the same things we always did. We just turned over a few staff, and we're still doing the same thing we always did. Anyway, look, Macca, we're 2 hours in, and we haven't done any stats, and some people are still interested in the stats. So I'm just going to whiz through them really quickly because I don't want to go too much longer than that. It's been a bit epic. our disposal count was pretty even, Mac, 358, 378. But despite even stats, 63 inside 50s to 41 in favour of the Hawks. Tells you a bit of a story.
Like we had a lot of those kick and disposals went sideways, just going nowhere.
Correct. Hitouts, match hitouts 40 to 25. I haven't seen the hitouts to advantage stats. Clearances, we got destroyed by 10, 39 to 29, 18 to 10 out of the centre, and 21-19 out of stoppage. Our centre clearance work, as we've spoken about, was horrific.
We were murdered.
Yeah, we got beaten at contested ball. We had 20 odd more marks, but again, it was all just crap on the outside that didn't actually mean anything. Marks inside 50 where it counts. Hawks 12 to 9. There's not a lot in the stats to really show you anything. We can have a look at some player stats though. But it just shows that, we had enough of the ball. We just didn't know how to use it. We just didn't use it at all, did we?
Well, a lot of it was defensive usage of the ball, Feen, because we couldn't break through their wall. And so, so a lot of those were just wasted going from side to side to side to side and going nowhere. And then when we try to go forward, we just turn it over.
Yeah. So Matt Crouch, 35 touches, 15 kicks, 20 handballs, 276 metres gained from those 35 touches, Mac. Doesn't seem enough, really. Rory Laird, 30 touches, 13 and 17. Had 380 metres gained. I reckon the last 200 of those would have been in the last quarter when he was playing half back and actually had to kick the ball forward.
It might be right, yep.
Jake Saligo had another excellent game, 29 disposals, 11 and 18. Actually went and he got the ball, Mac. 16 contested possessions, 15 uncontested possessions, and also 11 ground ball gets. Just coming along really nicely, Jake Saligo. I actually, in terms of effort, I probably would have given him almost our best player on the weekend.
He is the bright light of the club, isn't he? I mean, he's come from well back this year. Because they was playing him as a wingman and a half forward and all that sort of crap last year. This year they put him in the middle, and he has grown as he's been given the opportunity, and he's got every attribute of a midfielder. He's courageous, he's gutsy, he does all the right things.
Yeah. Lockie Scholl, 28 touches, 406 metres gained. I guess a decent game. As someone said earlier, not our worst.
No.
Brody Smith had 19 relatively inconsequential touches and only 300 metres off half back compared to Mitch Hinge, who had 426.
Some of those I'm going to say some of the kickoffs and points that Smith had.
Yeah, that's right. Luton and Curvis. This just shows you, right, what happens when you play a kid in the wrong position. He had 19 touches, but only 4 of them were kicks. But, that's not what you want to get out of Luton and Curvis, right?
In fact, he's normally a very good kicker as well.
Yep. Again, our defence, I thought, played all right. Mark Keane, 19 touches. I thought Borlase had a really good game, Macca. Even though he was on Gunston for most of it, and Gunston kicked a few sausages, I still thought that Borlase did pretty well when the going was really tough. Took a couple of really nice marks.
Surprised me at times.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to go through them all. Geordie Dawson was a bit down, only 15 touches. So it was played in strange positions and couldn't really get into it. Shouldn't have played if he was carrying a foot.
Correct.
Josh Rochelle, see, this is the problem with Josh when you're playing him at half forward. He only gets 11 touches, and you just want him to get more of the ball, right? So you got to put him in positions where he's going to get the ball. You don't play him at the graveyard. Play him on the ball, for God's sakes. Just let him play until he gets puffed out, and then sub him. Like, there's an idea. Or put him up forward for a while. Ben Keys also 11 touches. Sam Berry also 11 touches.
Berry was okay when he come on.
He's always okay when he comes on, Mac. Why wouldn't you give him a full game? Oh, that's right, because you got 2 senior players racking up 35 insignificant touches. Riley O'Brien, I thought, was very, very average. Got touched up by a young kid. He didn't try his guts out. I
was going to say, but he got done like it didn't.
Yeah, no, I don't even think he tried sometimes. He's just... We got to move on from Riley O'Brien, to be honest. Darcy Fogarty, only the 9 touches, but I felt like he really tried. And I got to say about Darcy, and I was talking to Cam about this afternoon, there was a free that Hawthorn got up in their forward line, that small bloke for an arm chop. I think it might have been against Michael Annie. Yep. And I think it was almost the next play into our forward line goes to Fogarty on a 2-on-1. He nearly had to pick his arms up off the ground and screw them back on. He got arm chopped that hard. Yep. And he cops it all the time. And Cam said something that was really pertinent. I think he's a victim of his own strength. Because a lot of players, if they got chopped like that or if they got interfered with like that, they go to ground or whatever. But Fogg's such a strong lad that he just holds his line. But the only thing that I would say about Darcy, he's got to take the ball a little bit more further out, in my opinion. He's a bit vertical, and that makes him vulnerable to the spoil and to the arm chop. He's got to get his jukes out a little bit more in front and jump at the ball rather than jump up to the ball. But he doesn't get any love from the umpires, that's for sure.
Nothing.
But we're going to see what we're going to get from Darcy over the next couple of weeks. Because finally we're not going to have... Well, I doubt we'll have Tex for a couple of weeks. And good opportunity coming into the break to give Tex a bit of a rest and let Darcy have the keys for a minute and see what he can do.
I think he'll perform. Quite frankly, he had that one game when Walker wasn't available and he started. I just think given the opportunity, if he got that every week, he just developed very quickly.
Yeah, so, Harry only the 7 touches, Cook only the 6 touches. They just got to bring these guys into the game, Macca, right?
Well, I'm going to say I was disappointed with Schonberg's 7 touches, but I didn't mind Cook's 6 touches because they were good touches.
Yeah, well, Harry was just right out of position. Again, you bring in a lad and you play him out of position. You give him 5 minutes on ball, and he feels like he's got to make the most of it. This is what I say when we bring these kids in, and they're given just a smidge of an opportunity. They feel like it's their only chance, and they have to take it. They're not given. Braden Cook's the only one this year that's been given a run of games to try and get into it. Gallant and Berry and Schoenberg and Pedlo before and all that. They must feel like they're playing for their lives every time they get on the ground.
We
got Rich Tats in the chat that wants to have something to say. Come in, Rich.
Hi, fellas. Have you got me?
Yeah, Rich. How you going, mate?
Yeah, not bad. So, dead quick. I just kind of wanted to come in. Thanks for having me on. So, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from Australia. I've never been to Australia. Never been to SA. Never been to Adelaide. No connection, but kind of fell in love with kind of Aussie rules and the Crows back around 2019. So you can blame me for all the demise ever since I came in. This is the first time in the kind of 5 years that I've been in love with them that I've felt kind of disillusioned. I am always the kind of glass half full guy, a lot around whether it's Knicks and all that kind of stuff. But this is the one time that I've kind of looked and thought, yeah, this is not what I thought we would be. I was cool with the whole rebuild thing, like, yeah, we need to do it. But since I've been a fan, since I've fallen in love with them, it's just felt like zero progression. I know we had a real low, a few years ago. This is the worst that I've kind of felt after the kind of Crows game, and I'm trying to get my lad into it, and he's like, Dad, why are you getting me to follow these guys? And it's just, it's the kind of first time that I've kind of felt that way as a Crows fan. I don't have the scars that most of you guys will have had from obviously years gone by, nor the glory. But on a positive note, I just kind of want to say thanks to you, Feenix and Macca. Again, as a guy from Yorkshire over in England, if you think it's bad getting coverage of Adelaide Crows in around AFL stuff over there, imagine how heavy the Victoria bias is trying to find anything when you're across the border, way over here. And I was searching for anything to get any sort of Crows content, and obviously stumbled across you guys a few years ago, and I've been a kind of avid listener since. So just a big thank you for giving me something to listen to and some sort of insight where I can't get it anywhere else. So appreciate what you guys do.
Mate, that's awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you're in Yorkshire at the moment, mate.
Yeah, Yorkshire. Yeah, Yorkshire. I'm born and bred, so kind of Sam Burgess, Joe Root country, depending on what sport you kind of know. Yorkshire. And always loved Aussie rules. And kind of. And
now let me ask you the inevitable question, mate. It's your summer's coming up. What's the degrees today? 12, 13?
16. It's about 16 degrees, yeah. But it's sunny, so it's pretty good. I'm in my shorts anyway. It works pretty well. Obviously, I'm in the north of England, for those of you geographically not sure where Yorkshire is. So, any sort of sunshine and 16 degrees, it's shorts weather for me, which is all right. But like I say, I've loved Aussie rules, and I thought, I need to kind of start, as you guys call it, barrack for someone, pick the Crows, obviously, like falling head over heels in love with them, and couldn't be more frustrated right now. But again, love what you guys do. Appreciate it.
Awesome, mate. Stick fat, mate.
Love you, mate. Yeah, we love you, and keep listening, mate.
Yeah, we'll do. Cheers, fellas. All the best.
Good on you. Okay. Cheers, mate.
See ya.
Bye.
Well, that was a
I don't reckon we can do any better than that, Macca. I reckon we wind it up on that note. Now, before we go, thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. We've had a bumper crowd across all our platforms. So thanks to everyone who's tuned in tonight for a bit of an epic rant. I hope that through our bile that we've spat, you've all got a bit cleansed. Macca, do you feel a bit cleansed, do you?
I've still got a bit of hatred left in me, mate. A lot of hatred. Look at the highlight for me was that Mr. Yorkshireman coming on. Rich, look, we've gone international, mate. So, we've made it. We've made it.
Yeah. Well, Macca, come on. Don't disrespect all the other international listeners that we have.
Do we?
Oh, mate.
Well, they better.
Have you forgotten American? Have you forgotten American Crow?
Yeah, but he's gone.
He's not gone. He's not gone. He still chats to me on Big Footy.
I'm from the North Pole. Good on you, mate. No, anyhow, it's been a good cast, and I have been able to vent quite a bit, because I'll tell you what, I have never felt as bad after a game as I have over this one here.
Yeah,
this is one where I just felt it's just so hopeless. So we've had that opportunity. We've said all that, and thanks, guys, for listening. Appreciate that very much, and I really hope we don't have to vent as badly next week.
Well, speaking of next week, the good thing from my point of view is I'm pissing off out of the country, so you can all get stuffed. I honestly don't know about the cast next week. I'll be in Ho Chi Minh City. So we'll try for something. It might be very raw. But I'm taking my gear and all the rest of it. We'll give it a crack. If we can't do the full podcast, then I'll do something on my phone or something from a pub, and we'll work something out. There'll be something from the CrowCast next weekend, and then the following weekend we've got Sydney. I'll be in some other part of Vietnam. We'll try something then, and then after that we've got the buy, so I don't care.
Do you want me to come on early, mate? Or do you want me to come on early?
Well, we'll talk about that off air. Macca. But at this stage, assume there'll be something on. Okay, and Macca, you and I communicate about setting it up, and keep an eye on socials on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube on the community chat there. I'll keep everyone up to date. So in the meantime, Mac, thanks very much for coming on board. I know you had a big day and it's been a big couple of weeks for you. So all the best to you and your wife and your family. Appreciate you taking the time to come on. And to everyone who's tuned in, much appreciated. And on Thursday, just give me a little wave as I fly over your head Thursday morning.
I'll do that.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a good week. And we'll see you next week in some way, shape, or form. Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Good night, all.